Hello and welcome to ShePack. I'm your host, Lenice Wolf, and today I'm excited to introduce today's guest, Jennifer Ives, CEO and co-founder of Wateringhole AI. In today's episode, we're going to discuss transitioning from climbing corporate ladders to building your own. Jennifer, welcome. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. This is such an honor.
Yeah. And what you guys didn't know is we had this whole conversation beforehand. So it's we were kicking off. I could have hit record, I feel like maybe a couple minutes after. And then we had some good laughs about our name pronunciations. And I think you were saying Ives. I asked if it's Ives or Ives. And
Ives.
Then I was the 1% maybe, I think, because what do people usually say for your last name?
99%, especially if they're reading it, 99, a solid 99% will say Eves. Miss Eves. I'll say Ives. There you go, Ives. So, who knew that Ives would be the stumbling block for me?
Yeah, which we had a good laugh because, my name's Lenice. So I told her people just pause and they don't say anything. And that's when I know my name is supposed to be called. So, there you go.
I love it. And no one has Jennifer, by the way. Jennifer has been Jenny, Jennifer. It's been real easy.
Jenny from the block. That's my favorite Jenny. So 6 months ago, you had made the brave decision to put a pause on your career. So let's talk about that. What led up to that moment?
Yeah. Well, so 6 months ago, I co-founded with Julie Holdren, Wateringhole AI. A year before that, I made a decision to take a sabbatical, a word that was really hard for me to say out loud for a little while, actually, when I stepped away. But I knew that I just come from a wonderful company, 3 Pillar Global. We had done amazing things. We had 2 private equity events in 5 years, very exciting, intense, wonderful experience. And I knew that I needed to just take a little pause there to have some time for myself, to have some time with my family, to do a little bit of traveling. It was kind of springtime anyway, with summer coming up. I've got 2 kids. It sounds really easy right now, right? Me telling you that. It was very, very difficult for me to make that decision, even though it was the right decision. I knew it was the right decision. My body needed rest. My mind needed rest. I wanted to have some time with my family. Like I said, it took a little while for me to even say the word sabbatical and to move into that.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, I think when people hear sabbatical, sometimes you think back to the Intels of the world that kind of offer that to their employees, or, then you get to that moment when you just say to yourself, hey, I just need a break. And then it's that fear starts to cripple in because it's well, what am I supposed to put on LinkedIn? Do I say that? Is it a bad word? But what concerns or feedback did you hear from others when you decided you were going to make that decision as well?
It was interesting. I have had a number of mentors in my career, especially recently, who have each, without hesitation, men and women. By the way, I find that men don't call it a sabbatical. They say, I'm taking a break. I'm going to take a 4-month break until my next role. So that's interesting. Smart. That I found out over the last year and a half or 2 years. But yeah, it was some mentors who saw nothing, did 10, 15 years on me, who saw nothing at all out of the ordinary after a very intense career and no time off for more than 2 decades, or time away to recharge and get creative again and all the things. They saw nothing wrong with it. And they were very supportive and a little surprised that I would have such trepidation around 1, doing it, and 2, naming it, right? Naming it sabbatical. I also have some friends who are peers, and a number of them have taken time off in the last couple of years for 3 months, 6 months, and they were very, very supportive. In particular, I'll tell you, it was the most challenging time was the first 3 months, and they were very supportive during that time. So yeah, it's a great question. It's for people who are going, especially year after year after year after year. I think it's not something that comes easy to say, I'm just going to take a little bit of time here. I'm going to take a pause. I'm going to get creative again. I'm going to see my family, and I'm going to recharge just a bit and think of my next step.
Yeah. And what I love about that is just the support system that you had around you and just how normalized it was, because I feel like, and I've shared my story where I decided, hey, look, I'm going to take a break from high tech. And, it's all these things go through your mind now. I think for this year in 2023, there's been a lot of layoffs and rifts and things like that have happened. And so it's almost like at some point, it's almost like an internal monologue that you have is, am I crazy for taking this time off? Is it going to ruin my career? And did you find that majority of that fear was more so coming from your head versus, because it sounds like you had such a great supportive ecosystem that was around you that just normalized it.
Yes. Thankfully they did, because I will be very honest with you, I was very fearful of that. And it was really helpful for me to be able to say that
Mm-hmm.
to friends and to my coach. I have a professional coach that I've worked with on and off for a number of years, an executive coach. And it was so helpful to be able to say, I'm scared I won't get another job. And for them to immediately, whomever it was like, are you crazy? Like, you could have a job tomorrow. You could do all these things. And so not only did they normalize that it is okay to take a break, whether it's 2 weeks, 6 weeks, 3 months, like whatever you personally need in the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for people to remind you sometimes, because even high achieving people often feel that, like, what if this is it? What if I never get a job again? Even though that sounds counterintuitive and you wouldn't think that, I felt it very deeply. That was the hardest part of taking time away. When recruiters would call, when opportunities would come in, especially in those first few weeks when people knew that I had stepped away and stepped down, it was very hard to say. I mean, I had to practice and write it out. I literally had it on a card. I am going to be on sabbatical through September. I would love to talk with you guys. I literally had 3 or 4 sentences written out because it was so hard for me at first to say that out loud. It really was. And it shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
It should not have been.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like too, it's like you start to have things that come up in your head of what other people's responses would be. And I love that you said that you wrote it down, because it's sometimes you almost have to coach yourself through it. And there's a lot of like unlearning, I feel like, that you have to do as well.
Yes. There's a lot of unlearning, especially I help hypergrowth companies grow and succeed and get to their next level. And I had done 3 companies back to back. And so to slow down, like I like to be busy. I love the hyper growth. I love to, there's the mountain. Let's go take the mountain. Like that's what I enjoy. And so to acknowledge that I needed to just step away from that a little bit in order to get that energy back to be able to say, there's the mountain. Let's go take the mountain. And then also just to slow down and let my brain slow down. It was a process, definitely.
Yeah. Now you had talked about that you help hypergrowth companies. And what was that catalyst? Did you just feel within yourself and have that self-awareness of, hey, I'm just losing energy. I need a break. What was that kind of breaking point, or just that moment? We talked about chapters before offline, but what was that chapter or moment that you felt like now is the right time?
So yeah, I love the adrenaline and the excitement of building new things. Whether I come in with a founding team or I come in at an inflection point with a company, they're going kind of from one point in time to another a goal that they're trying to achieve. And I found that I had lost that excitement. And I didn't think I lost it forever. I just knew that over the last 20 years, even a few months before that, I was really excited. And it has nothing to do with not loving what I do or not loving who I was doing it with or anything. It was just, I knew that I had lost what brought joy to me in the work, the kind of work that I do. And I guess that was the moment that I remember turning to my husband and saying, I think I need a few months. I think I need a few months with you and the kids. I need to hike. I need to go canoeing. I love nature, and I love being alone and quiet in nature and hiking. And I just needed to kind of rediscover that energy and that joy again. And I wasn't worried that it would never come back. I just needed to, it was complex. And yet, as I'm telling you, I'm like, oh, that was so simple. Like, yes, you lost something that you knew had been there for 20 years or longer, actually. And I just needed a little bit of time to get it back.
What was your husband's response when you had that conversation with him?
I married the best guy. I mean, he he's so lovely. He's so loving, lovely, loving, funny, supportive, all of it. And he said, yeah, so basically he said, yeah, I support you. If you believe that you need that time, you need that time. And
Yeah.
he then just joked with me during my sabbatical when he's like, I've never seen a sabbatical like this. Yes, you are exercising. Yes, you are outdoors. Yes, you are spending more time with the family, and you're on your computer a lot. And I hear you giving a lot of high growth advice. Because what I did is, I think you and I chatted about this. My sabbatical really was filled with helping some female tech founders across the country with their high growth strategies, and that was my way of getting back. And that actually was my way of filling my cup. I found it incredibly gratifying. And so anyway, he was supportive, and he also a few months in was like, I don't know any other sabbatical like this. I mean, I don't know what I expected, but not you still working from, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. every day. But it didn't feel like work to me at all. It was very filling. Yeah, soul filling.
Yeah, you got to write your own rules to what a sabbatical was. That's awesome.
Exactly.
Well, and I'm hearing from you, I don't think this is going to be your situation because you like hiking and it sounds like you did a lot of exercise. But I would anticipate if somebody's going to take a break, they can't just sit on the couch, binging Netflix, eating Takis every day. That's not going to serve you. So how does someone strategically navigate a career break? And you've talked about as well, leaning on your community support and coaching and financial planning. So what was your approach? And you mentioned a little bit of it.
Yeah. So first, financially, I did need to figure out for my family and I kind of how much time I had. And I'm not independently wealthy. So, I wasn't like, well, whatever, whenever I go back. We needed to figure that out. We needed to pull back on spending. And we made those decisions because my health, my happiness, kind of all the things, I was finally putting myself first, to be quite honest, putting myself first and saying like my health, my happiness, way more important than an extra vacation, or you fill in the blank, an extra pair of shoes, or like whatever people love, right? Everyone has their own thing. We pulled back the spending quite a bit to make it happen. I will say, and I wonder, in the first few weeks, I love to read memoirs and nonfiction, and I love to watch documentaries. And I will say, in the first few weeks, I didn't just jump right into, and I shouldn't lead anyone to believe that I just jumped right into, helping other companies and like filling my cup and all of that stuff. Because those first few weeks, I needed to sleep. I had a couple of friends who had already been on sabbatical, and they met me for coffee like every once in a while. And one of them was like, I know that you love to landscape. Maybe you should literally said, maybe you should have your hands in the dirt. Because I was like, I'm so jumpy all the time. Why am I so jumpy? My brain can't seem to slow down. She's like, why don't you just like go to why don't you plant some flowers? Why don't you build your garden? Like, cause you've told me you love to landscape. I'm not kidding you. The next day I was out there like hands in the dirt, and it started to soothe and calm me. I had another friend who walks quite a bit, and we've got a lot of hills in the area where I walk, where I live. And so her walking was very cardio fueled, and she invited me to walk with her, and I went walking with her. And it's like, I heard the birds in a way that I hadn't heard them before. The flowers were like this, like the brightest pink I'd ever seen. It's like, I really had burned out, and I didn't even realize how burned out I was. These things happened. I mention that because I did lay on my bed or sit on the couch quite a bit those first few weeks watching documentaries. And I remember thinking to myself, should I be worried about myself? I need to click on like yet another documentary. And it was another friend who I like half jokingly said that to. And she's like, you're going to be fine. I have a feeling that when your brain is done watching documentaries, like I don't foresee you watching documentaries for the next 6 months to a year. And it was around like 6 weeks that I went on those walks. I watched a lot of documentaries. I read a number of memoirs. I'm an introverted extrovert, meaning I'm right on the line. I'm introverted and I'm extroverted. I do some things like to regenerate and rejuvenate my soul. being quiet is very important to me. It's why I mentioned kind of the hiking and being in nature and being quiet. I love to read quietly. I can walk into a room for business and chat with everyone and love it in the moment and get very energized. I'm also, even over the introverts that I know that are classic introverts, I'm also the first person at the end of that event who's like, I'm going back to my hotel room. Like I'm out of words. So the introverted piece of me really did need time, quiet and alone, and just like to come in order to come back out into the world.
No, it's funny. You speak my language because I'm also an introverted extrovert, and I'll find myself, and it's interesting because if I go into a big room of people, I'll be smiling and talking with everyone. And just like you, I'm the first one to say, all right, it's time to go. And then as soon as I walk out that door, it's like all my energy is gone. So
Completely.
it's, I totally get it. It's interesting because I think, as you had mentioned, you took that time off and it was just really resetting. And part of that was being in your quiet mode of just sitting, watching documentaries, reading books. How did you start to, after like the 6? Yeah. How did you start to structure your time to kind of balance that personal rejuvenation to the professional exploration? Because like you said, your husband caught you and you're giving all this high growth advice. And how did you balance those things and start to find your kind of like timing in all of it?
Yeah. Great question. I don't know if it was proactive or reactive or kind of how this happened. But as you asked that question, I kind of think back, and I woke up at the same time every morning. So I usually woke up around 6 a.m. as normal. Like that's what, and then I was out of bed at 7 a.m. So I didn't, even during those first few weeks, it's not like I stayed in bed and like lulled around. Although that's fine too. If that's what someone wants to do, have at it. I got up at 7. I started walking and being outdoors. Someone who loves the outdoors, and I had separated myself from that for a while, accidentally for a number of years. It just happens. I started to realize like how important, and now we know, neuroscience shows, and lots of people will talk about, lots of doctors will talk about the fact that like morning sunlight is so good for your brain and for your body and your energy and all these things. So I just happened to, I was waking up at 6 or 7 in the morning. I was out of bed by 7. I was walking. I just started this kind of routine in the day where I would, see the kids off to school. They only had a few more weeks anyway, but see the kids off to school. I'd go walking, sometimes with a friend, another executive woman, actually 2 executive women that live near me, that like once a week, they had time in the morning to do that between a call. So I was able to go walking with them. And then I would just put my earpods in or AirPods, as my kids always correct me. I would put my headphones on and I would go walking and listen to podcasts or listen to music. And then many times I made myself actually not do any of the auditory. I just needed to be present in nature and listen to the birds and just kind of take in what was around me. The short answer to your question is I did come up with a schedule that worked for me, and I can't say that I like sat down and I was like, this is going to be my schedule. It just was something that I know I'm someone who works better on a schedule, even on sabbatical or time off. I work better on a schedule. Even if the schedule is like for 3 hours, I get to watch 2 documentaries. Great. It's part of my day. So the schedule kind of found itself, and it was just a decrease in intensity around a schedule that I'd had for 20 years. And the decrease in intensity was really helpful. It was helpful to, wake up at 6 or, be out of bed by 7 o'clock in the morning, but not have to set my timer every 10 minutes, which is what I had done for years. 10 minutes of breakfast, 10 minutes of shower, 10 minutes of drying my hair, 10 minutes of getting dressed, 10 minutes with making the kids, literally 10-minute increments. Just like I would just reset, and then head out the door. I know that I did it for more than 20 years, but while I took some time off, that wasn't the case as much anymore, right? I wasn't needing to set myself to a tight schedule like that. That for me helped a great deal to know that I had that flexibility.
Well, and I can only imagine that it causes so much stress because you're giving yourself that time span. Although, I think if I had to get ready in 10 minutes, I would just totally screw myself over because I need more than 10 minutes. But I think going along those lines, clearly there's like habits that you pick up along your career. Were there any other habits that you felt like you had to unlearn as you were in this moment?
Oh my gosh, that's a really great question. And I think there are many. One, I needed to unlearn, and I know a lot of, in particular, women, but I'll just say people might say this. I needed to unlearn saying yes to everyone
Mm,
and putting myself last. That is so, I feel like so many people talk about that, and it is so true. I needed to unlearn saying yes to everyone, and I needed to learn how to say no. There's a great book, The Myth of the Nice Girl, Fran
mm,
Hauser. It is an excellent book. I've read it probably 3 times, maybe 4. I recommend it all the time as well. And she has she has a couple chapters on learning to say no. And it was really
mm-hmm,
helpful to me to reread that. So I needed to unlearn because I was saying yes to everything and everyone.
mm, mm-hmm.
I had, especially in the last 10 years, I had a habit of thinking that I was still 20 and like, oh, I'll get to exercise later, or like, I'll do that for myself later. And then a year would go by and I'd be like, have I not been on the Peloton in a year? Like, is that for real? Cause it seems like 3 weeks and I need to I need to walk or get on the Peloton or go running or something.
Right.
So just prioritizing, like literally
Mm-hmm,
prioritizing myself. And again, a mentor years ago when I had little kids, she told me, she said, put your oxygen mask on first. If you don't have
mm-hmm.
your oxygen mask on, your family like is not going to be able to get the help they need. They're not going to, you're not going to be at top game for them. And I definitely did not put my own oxygen mask on for years and years. I forgot. Again, you think you're 20, you
Yeah.
think like, nothing's ever going to happen to me health wise. And things do happen. And I've lost a couple friends over the last
Mm,
decade. And my mom has passed away. And I've seen,
mm,
firsthand, I lost my dad in my early 20s. So I saw firsthand early in my adult
mm-hmm,
life that life is not forever. And it really is a blessing every day. You kind of get into, uh, I just got into a pattern of
mm-hmm.
thinking like, well, it's okay for 5 years. That's okay. No, it's not. It's not.
Yeah. Well, and even when you said that, I thought of when I was in I had my first daughter when I was 29, but even then, my body bounced back immediately. And I
Mhm.
remember I was like working out, and then by the time I had my third daughter, it, my body did not bounce back. And I thought, well, I have these meetings. I'm like, I have a bigger team now. I have more responsibilities. Those things can wait. My body will jump back. And I felt like, I think even 2 years, well, she'll be 3 in February. And I started to realize, I was like, I don't feel good. I don't, a lot of it is just like, how you're feeling. And I heard a mentor of mine say that, she's talking about her parents, but she said, when they stopped moving is when they are slowly starting to die. And I think it's one of those pieces where you don't even realize being chained to your desk. It's like you're just, not moving and getting that morning sunshine and, kind of putting it off. You don't realize that you're putting others before you without putting yourself first, and you start to deteriorate. And, I'm no good to my family if I'm completely exhausted and burnt out and I can't think clearly anymore. So that really resonated for me.
Yeah, I agree. 100%.
Yeah. Now, were there moments during your sabbatical when you felt the urge to return back to those high growth companies? And if so, what were the factors that helped you to recognize that the timing just wasn't right?
Oh yeah, that's so. I can give you some real specifics. As I mentioned, I got over having to read my 3x5 card, but I would say, and I was very blessed. It was very generous that I was getting routine phone calls. They did start to go away, right? People hear that you are not
Mm-hmm.
available and the calls go away. They pop back up at the end of September. I mean, it was wonderful. 1 or 2 recruiters called and then like 2 more. Not a ton. I'm not saying like the whole world was like wondering like, hey, when can I get Jennifer in my office? But few people started and I was like, oh, this is wow. Okay. So I started taking the calls and the job sounded really exciting. And yet I felt nauseous,
Mm-hmm.
actual nausea when I was having the conversation. And it wasn't at all making the connection because I was excited. I loved what the companies were about. When, I was just talking with the recruiter, right? The headhunter. I immediately thought of other people that I could recommend because there
Mm-hmm.
wasn't anything wrong with the job or the company. And yet I was like, why am I nauseous? And what I
Yeah.
did tell myself is when I went on, when I took a break, when I went on sabbatical, I did know that I needed to do a better job of listening to myself, listening to my intuition. I lost my road on that over the summer. the intuition was, are you going to go play with the kids? Or are you going to, like, the decisions were different. Now it was like, what is my body trying to tell me? And I was like, what? Nauseous. This is so weird. And I was like, all right, I'm not ready to go back. That's an exciting company. It's an exciting role. I can think of two people who I would love to introduce them into this conversation, which I did, by the way. Each time I was introduced 2 or 3 recommendations. But yeah, it was the physical. The two weren't matching, right? I was feeling sick to my stomach, and yet in my head, I was like, this is creative. This is amazing. Wait, what's going on? And I was like, oh yeah. Okay. I'm supposed to live. If I've learned nothing over the last 4 months, like 5 months, like, oh, that's right. It's my body telling me, like, not yet. And by the way, it did go away a few months later. Right. So like,
well, and before those few months later, you had also talked about, and I want to pull it back in because you were saying, I think it was when your husband was listening to you while you were on the phone, but you had also found opportunities to advise others. How did that come up?
I love building communities, and I'm very passionate about women in STEM and women in technology, as well as women in executive leadership. And so I love building communities. I love bringing people together. It's one of my superpowers. I think of it as nothing. And then someone will say, how did you, like, that's really amazing that you brought 50 people together and I'm like, wow, it was just, those were 50 smart people and we all got together. Yeah. I say that because I went on LinkedIn and I was looking through different companies of high growth female founded companies. And I reached out to them and said, hi, I'm Jennifer Ives. This is what I do. I'm on sabbatical. I have a couple of hours each week. This isn't something for me to put on LinkedIn. Isn't something for me to do, except I love what you're doing. And if I can be of any help, this is my expertise. If I can be of any help, let me know. And I started, just providing my time and my thoughts and my energy about 2 hours a week to 4 different companies. And it was just that straightforward.
Wow. And did you find when you reached out to them, were majority of them just really willing, hey, this is free help, or this is someone who wants to help us? Did you get pretty high response rates from your engagement?
All 4.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because I wasn't looking for anything. I wasn't looking to be paid. I wasn't looking to talk about it on LinkedIn. I wasn't looking to, I was looking to give. I wanted to give. If you're at an inflection point, I love what you're doing. If 2 hours a week is helpful to you, amazing. Yeah. Let's do this. And I knew I couldn't do it for 6 months and that I wasn't going to do it for 6 months, but probably turned into, 6 to 12 weeks ish and, a few months. And all 4 said yes. And it was amazing. And it's sometimes nice as a CEO founder to just have someone to talk to and to run some ideas by, because sometimes when you're in the weeds now, this is me, right? I'm a CEO co-founder. And sometimes I'm in the weeds on something, even something that I know very, very well, like go to market, right? And sometimes I'm like, I need to talk to my co-founder and other go to market peers of mine just to say, I'm in the weeds on this. What are your thoughts? If I were advising a company, I think I'd see this very clearly, and yet I'm in it. So it's hard for me.
Yeah.
So I had a sense that would be helpful to them. And also, I think it was the fact that I was giving. I was asking nothing in return. I wasn't asking to come on as an advisor in 2 months and let's see. It was just, I like what you're doing. Is there any way I can help? Like, this is my background. You see me on LinkedIn. Can I help you? Would you like 2-ish hours a week of my time?
Yeah. Well, and what's nice about that, you said this also kind of a little bit earlier, that it just didn't feel like work. I think giving, and you were giving actually to yourself too, in so many ways of just having time to be outside, things you weren't doing before, and going on walks and being around community, to then even being in the industry community and giving back of what you had. And it's so interesting because I think sometimes I've heard somewhere that there are moments where you find yourself, you end up taking on more, but it just doesn't seem like it because it's something that's giving you purpose and it's driving your passion.
Yeah. I love your wordings. It gave me purpose. It drove my passion, and it absolutely filled my cup. And it did not feel like work at all. It really did feel like it was the right thing to do. I have this experience. They were going through inflection points of their own, and I was able to help, at a time that I could. right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're right. It was purposeful, and I'm passionate about it. And it didn't feel like work at all. No, not at all.
Yeah. Well, and it wasn't even, I feel like sometimes too, I know at least for myself, it's like I can overthink something and I can say, hey, I really want to start a podcast. And then I'll sit here and say, oh, well, I don't know how to do that. It's like, just reach out. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect either. So, it's good transition though, because you had mentioned, and obviously we introduced you in the beginning as the CEO and founder. So how did your experiences and insights that you gained through your sabbatical contribute to this decision of now being the CEO and founder of Wateringhole AI?
Yeah. So listen, without the sabbatical, I wouldn't have bet enough on myself to co-found a company, to take on the CEO role, to really think about it. And it's not that I couldn't see myself doing that. It's like I just never did see myself doing that. And it was while I was on sabbatical. And a mentor of mine often talks about a sabbatical as your North Star. You'll find your North Star when you're on a sabbatical, or when you can take some time. Again, whether it's, and that could be different things to different people. It could be a long weekend in the woods hiking. It doesn't have to be 6 months. Right? It's just, but you'll often find your North Star. And I had the energy and the creativity, and I built up enough, go back to energy, to have a lot of grit and know that I could put my ideas and thoughts towards this company. And my co-founder, Julie Holdren, had been working on this technology for 2 years and called me about it. And, I said, your AI technology solves many challenges that myself as a go-to-market expert was looking to solve. And I knew that AI could do it, but it was just too expensive over the last few years. And now prices have come down, compute costs have come down, speed has gone up. There are more algorithms available in the cloud, like all sorts of things kind of came to a perfect point in the last year or so. And so, I will often say that without the sabbatical, never, it wouldn't have been a thought to me. I would have joined the C-suite, probably in a growth role at someone else's company.
Well, and it sounded like when you got the call, you didn't feel nauseous, which was the first step of a good sign.
Exactly. No, I was so excited. And when she was telling me about the technology and what she'd been working on, and the results that they had already driven, and literally it was that afternoon, and I said, if you'll have me, let's co-found this company today. We can rebrand based on the technology that you've been working on, and we'll start validating in the market. And we did. We took 6 weeks to validate because I knew it was an excellent idea, and that was my world, right? And I hadn't heard a lot of people share the AI modeling that she was describing, and it applied to marketing and sales to drive revenue at companies. And so, I leaned into my network, and we validated with CEOs and chief growth marketing officers and CTOs around the world at Fortune 1,500 and Fortune 50 companies who took my call. I've known them a long time. They took my call. Absolutely. Let me help you with this. And we validated the idea. And there weren't 50 other companies doing it, right? There were really none. I mean, there are companies that market themselves as doing it, but marketing them yourself as doing it is different than actually writing the code and understanding. Yeah. So,
that's awesome. Now, for those that are not familiar with Wateringhole AI, can you share more about the scope of the company and really what aspects of the mission and work that have excited you the most?
Yeah. Okay. So Wateringhole AI is an AI company that helps, in particular, Fortune 1000, like mid to large companies, really understand their marketing and sales data better in order to drive revenue. So the short answer to that is we help you market more effectively and drive sales and greater revenue faster. Our whole goal, and what excites me, is that I've always been the person who's wanted to say, like, what is the problem in the market? What is the technology solution or product that can help, right? The service or the product that can help with that particular pain point. Not the vitamin, not the nice to have, but like someone in the market is in pain, and then what technology can be applied to that. And this is a technology that can be applied to, in AI, the AI technology can be applied to a huge pain point. Every company is aware of current customers that need to grow, as well as putting their product or their service in front of new customers and bring them on and generate revenue, whether they're private companies or publicly traded. And so the ability to, I've always thought of my version of go to market has always been, it's not just about the revenue. It's not just about the sale. It's about someone has a pain point. Do I have the right service or product to solve your pain point? And if I do, fantastic. Let me help you. Let me show you the business reasons, the business case behind it, which is what we do at Wateringhole. We will literally like pencil out the ROI. We help our clients identify a use case that will drive the strongest return on investments, the strongest revenue generation for them. That excites me, right? I don't want to be in the world just to, put my brain and my energy. I'm an engineer early in my career, and I moved over to the go-to-market commercial side, growing companies, technology companies, a number of years ago. And I want to put my brain towards something that is actually helping our customer solve a pain point. And so at Wateringhole, that's what we do. And we do it very, very well. We're the experts at doing so. Again, applying AI modeling and platform to marketing, to optimizing marketing and sales, and really looking for actual return on investment, actual revenue generation, not efficiencies, not other companies do that well, by the way, that it is needed. We are looking at helping companies drive revenue. That's what wakes us up in the morning.
Yeah. And what a perfect time, I would say, on so many different levels of just the economy, and everyone's trying to get to this path to profitability, to then the explosion of AI. And I was just listening to an event this week, and they said, AI has been around since the 50s and the 60s. But I think how much, even now with generative AI, how it's optimizing and really helping people's productivity so that they can spend more time being creative. All of those things that you talked about, it takes so much time. So what a great opportunity for you guys to come in and start getting that validation. So congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's been exciting. I mean, founding your own company, we're bootstrapping strategically. We want to bootstrap. We want to own the company. We might go out for funding later, but right now we are bootstrapping, and it's been very exciting. It's been a roller coaster of all the things. Like, nothing is surprising or shocking to me. Just sometimes I'm like, oh, right, now it's happening to me. My co-founder and
I know this process.
Exactly. But the good news is that like nothing's out of left field. I'm like, oh yes. Okay. Well, that's not that. Yeah, that happens. It's just, I don't know. It's been exciting, and it's hard, and it's exciting too.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, my last question for you, my friend, is in a world full of possibilities, what mark do you dream of leaving as a trailblazer for future generations of empowered women?
I'd like to see more women in leadership positions, especially in technology, especially with the advent of AI, the proliferation of AI. It's so important to have different perspectives, different ideas, diversity at the table when you're talking about technology, and in particular AI. So I would like to ensure that girls, young women, and women fully into their career are staying in technology, leaning into companies with technology, technology companies, and leaning into those leadership positions. And I'd like to make sure that I'm one, being a role model, and two, being a mentor to those who are still coming up in their career, and then also a good friend and peer to the women who are, in the C-suite, and those leading or wanting to lead technology, in particular technology companies.
Yeah, I love that. And what I would say to our audience is, even just in our short meetings, Jennifer, I consider you such a great friend, and I've learned so much in my chapter that I've been in. So I just thank you so much for being part of the podcast, and definitely a space to watch out for, Wateringhole AI. Check them out. See how Jennifer and team continues to disrupt this industry and the things that they do. Now, as we wrap up today's episode, let's remember that in supporting one another, we amplify our strengths and we break down barriers. So go out there, champion for your dreams, empower your peers, and continue to shape a future where every woman realizes her true potential. Until next time, see ya.